Hey, we're doing it live. Thank you so much for joining us. If you watched the live stream that we did this afternoon for the David Hamblin case, you'll know you're probably wondering what happened. Why did it get cut off? Um, not very long into it. So, just some background before we answer that question. What we're talking about here is the case of David Hamblin and satanic ritual abuse accusations. Because now that the case has been dismissed, we have to refer to this as alleged satanic ritual abuse. Even though we can say what my opinion is, I don't think it's alleged. I believe the victims. That is my belief. And I'm pretty sure that we still have the ability to say that, even though the judge today really clamped down on the First Amendment and its validity. So also you'll see here we have a special guest. We have a guest host tonight. We have Rod Klingler with us. Thank you, Rod, for being on tonight. And
thanks for having me.
If you have not seen any of our other stories on satanic ritual abuse, please either on our YouTube channel or here on the YouTube channel or at treeoflibertysociety.com. Go there and just type in satanic ritual abuse. There are several other videos that we have done. We've been covering this for a while. As I've said in the other videos, I've talked to Bishop Glenn Pace personally, went to his house, talked to him. This is a topic that I have studied, that I've looked into, researched, read about for many years. I've read the horrific victim statements and been doing several stories since, especially since it was brought up back in 2022, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 2022. So go back for more information on the background of this, but it's horrific. Satanic ritual abuse is real. We have people that have confessed. We have multiple victims that have stated this, that are unrelated to each other, that have told the same exact stories. Rod, this is something that you've also looked into. Just give us a little bit of background of maybe some of the facts of satanic ritual abuse that you've researched and that you know about that you'd like to share.
I've actually read a lot of different stories and seen some video interviews of people that were victims of SRA.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that strikes me, I always mention, is that even though there's all these cases that come up, different people, different victims in different countries, different states around the US, they all seem to tell a lot of the same tales about sacrificing babies, or a lot of the girls made impregnated and had their own children killed. Oftentimes, like you mentioned, the Glenn Pace thing, that's something that comes up a lot as well, where you have these trusted people that are either teachers or often religious leaders, sometimes parents, that are taking these kids to sometimes church buildings, often other places, baptisms of blood, things like that. And they often use, it was mentioned by Glenn Pace as well, they often use a lot of religious language. And so they often know like the religion of the victim. And so they use those things to kind of reframe the satanic rituals that they have the kids participate in, or victims participate in. And so a lot of times there's a lot of guilt. People are made to feel like they can never be forgiven for the things that they've been forced to perform. I guess is one way to say it.
Yeah.
But like I said, it strikes me that all the cases are similar. You've got women who are much older, who are recalling these things, and then I've seen interviews with 15-year-olds and 6, 7, 8-year-olds, and it's all very similar tales. Oftentimes there's hidden rooms where things are happening and things like that, in homes and churches and schools. That's probably about all I want to say at the moment. But they're very similar across the board,
We're definitely going to try to keep this as PG-13 maybe as we can. But if anybody has any comments, questions, please put that in the live chat. We'd love to be able to interact with you during this live stream. Another part of it too is not just this Glenn Pace memo. from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but you also have the Franklin cover-up, an important book. There's two books on the case over in Nebraska during the 80s and 90s called the Franklin cover-up, and then you have the Franklin. If I remember the name. The second book was the Franklin Controversy, if I remember correctly, and then there's a documentary called Conspiracy of Silence that we also have on the website. Highly encourage folks to look at the literally the conspiracy to make people not believe that this is real. It's crazy. You got the police involved, you got the media involved, you've got elected officials involved, you've got high Republican Party officials involved in the cover-up over in Nebraska. And so this is not just an isolated thing in the Intermountain West. We're talking like just this is worldwide. I mean, just, Epstein is kind of the more current, chic thing to talk about with human trafficking and sex trafficking. But this has been going around, and this is more than just people and their perversion. These are people that are religiously. People always ask me, why are these people so dedicated towards evil? When we talk about the conspiracy, we talk about corruption in government. Well, and this really, satanic ritual abuse is the answer, because they have a religious dedication towards evil, whether that's evil in government or that's evil with, that they perpetrate on others. They have a religious conviction, like hopefully Christians have. They have a religious conviction towards doing good, towards making the world better. These individuals have a religious conviction to do as much as they, as much evil as they can get. So that's an important thing for us to remember along those lines. So with the Glenn Pace, with this David Hamblin case, these allegations go back to the early 1980s to the early 1990s against David Hamblin. And really, basically from the early 90s, when this whole thing was dismissed as satanic panic, and people were coming forward and confessing to being a part of these things. Of course, the people in government refused to prosecute and just swept all of this under the rug. And so David Hamblin's case disappeared basically from the early 90s until roughly 3 years ago, 2022, when you have the case of the Utah County Sheriff's Department, and his friend was running for the county attorney general's position, or the county attorney position. And so they started this up, which had in these satanic ritual abuse allegations and statements, you have who was at the time in 2022 the county attorney for the county of Utah, David Levitt, who was also and previously the attorney for the county of Juab, which is just south of Utah County if you're not from the state of Utah. And so the same allegations go back, and in those previous videos that we won't rehash right now, when we go into detail of the things that happened with David Levitt, the things that he was accused of, what happened after he lost the election, how he goes off to Europe to get a castle in Scotland, and all of the same people accused both David Hamblin and David Levitt of these crimes, but only David Hamblin and his wife get charged with the crime in 2022. And please, Rod, if you've got anything to interject, please do.
I do. I was going to mention, I actually, while you're speaking, I opened up the Fox News article from September 2022, from when David Hamblin was actually arrested. And it says here, taken into custody and booked on 3 counts of sodomy on a child, rape of a child, 2 counts of aggravated sexual abuse of a child, lewdness involving a child. And then it also has a link to a previous arrest where he had confessed to sexually assaulting at least one of his female family members. So this is the kind of person that we're talking about here.
Right. Allegedly. Wink.
Allegedly. Right.
And So yeah, really just horrible. If the accusations are true, it's just horrible stuff. And so 2022 gets arrested. Finally, 2025, sorry, February 19th, 2025, we have this preliminary hearing scheduled for today, both in Utah County in the city of American Fork, as well as in Manti, which is in, I'm trying to think of, it's Mount Pleasant's a city in that county. I'm having a blank on the name of the county that Manti's in. But anyways, it's in more central Utah. And so he had these two preliminary hearings today regarding these charges in 2022 from allegations from the 80s and 90s. And it's been bizarre because, as I reported in a previous video, that the other prosecutors in the case, they were barred from being able to prosecute. You had one prosecutor that wasn't barred from doing it. He was all of a sudden mysteriously promoted to being a judge, so he couldn't prosecute the case anymore. And then the state legislature last session introduced a bill to criminalize ritual abuse. Can't believe it wasn't already a crime. But they introduced the bill, but it got out of committee, but never, after passing committee, for some reason, it never went to the floor of the House to be voted on. So you have the county, you have the judicial, and you have the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch all working together to make sure that nobody is being prosecuted for these horrific crimes, if real. And
now, real quick, I want to mention that that's actually a thing, right? That's one of the things when you study the satanic ritual abuse, whenever they do have people that get fingered, that maybe get possibly arrested, like what happened in this case, always they get off a technicality or an escape or something like that, but they never, ever actually go to jail for their crimes.
Right. Yeah, even if they confess, which is bizarre, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have these court cases today, and so I was like, hey, let's let people know about it. Let's make sure that as many people from as many different venues, because this is the one in Manti was not public, and it was packed, and so not everybody that went to the court hearing in Manti was able to get in and to see what was happening, and it wasn't broadcast. It wasn't streamed, so not a whole lot of, there's nothing people could do about that. But the one in Utah County was streamed live. And so because it's a public event, it is a public trial. It is being done in a public building with public officials, and a part of the public record and the First Amendment. And they were streaming it. And so I set up my own stream that I said, okay, well, we'll let the people that follow us be able to watch what's going on, and they can see with their own eyes what happened. But hidden in code, not even in legislative code, but in judicial code, they say that you're not allowed to stream or to make public recording a court hearing, the proceedings inside of a court. I don't know if you have that the code right in front of you, Rod. You want to, if you can read that, go ahead.
Give me 1 second. Yeah.
Okay.
Right here. Okay. It says there shall be no electronic media coverage of proceedings in chambers.
There you go. Pretty simple. I thought the First Amendment and the public interest stripped that. I didn't even know about that code. I was, acting innocently and basing on the actual law, which is the Constitution, the actual law. And so what had happened was we obviously have somebody that is either in our social media, on our text alerts, or on our email alerts. If you want to be a part of that, go to treeoflibertysociety.com and sign up for email alerts or our text alerts. And or on our social media that is getting these announcements is friendly with David Hamblin. Because what happened was he reached out to David Hamblin's attorney and said, hey, there is somebody us streaming streaming the case on the internet. And so David Hamblin's lawyer then tells the court and tells the judge, hey, this is happening. And so the judge says, whoever's doing that needs to stop. He said, I'm going to find you, and I'm going to imprison you, and I'm going to fine you, and I'm going to press criminal charges against you for exercising the First Amendment right to report on public events and to have free speech to be able to talk about things as I see fit. And so because I do believe in nullification, but I also believe in wisdom. And so because I didn't make a decision of what am I going to do if I get threatened with jail time for exercising my First Amendment rights, because that idea just, and I should know that is, of course, something that they will want to attack. I should have assumed that was a possibility, but for some, I was naive for the moment and thought, of course, they will not attack my First Amendment rights. And so, but when I realized that, hey, they were serious, they were going to throw me in prison for showing you what was going to happen, I said, okay, I want to make sure this thing moves forward, and so that there's a record of what happened. And so I stopped streaming. And I can either confirm nor deny that that myself or someone I may or may not know had recorded the rest of the proceedings. I can't say. But what I can say is we've got notes of the meeting, and if such a thing exists, we will see if that is something that should be done in the future. I wanted to make sure that the public record was clear on this thing. And so,
the strangest thing about that as well was, like you kind of pointed out earlier, they were already live streaming it. It was already being broadcast.
Right. Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were doing something that wasn't already being done. We were just basically boosting the signal.
Right.
That they were already broadcasting.
And anybody, right? Because I'm nobody, I'm nobody, and I would just put my name and email in, and boom, I was able to stream it. So it wasn't like the public couldn't see it. So as you say, we were just boosting the signal so that other individuals could see it. But of course, they don't believe in the First Amendment, and so they do that. And so I end the live stream, and but then I continue to take notes and follow what is going on in the proceedings. And what happens after my live stream ends is almost crazier than being forced to end the live stream, because we have we have David Hamblin. So the defense lawyer, David Hamblin's lawyer, issues a request to dismiss the case with prejudice. So which with prejudice means they can't bring it up again. And so they wanted that dismissed. And then the lawyer for the victim, the alleged victim, so is like flabbergasted. She's like, wait a second, what's going on here? I just talked to you guys yesterday, and nobody brought up anything about dismissing the case. What's going on here? Totally shocked. Now, does the judge say what's going on here? How come the alleged victim's lawyer doesn't know that you're requesting a dismissal with prejudice? No, that's not at all what he says. He says, well, what do I have to do? Well, what's the rules behind dismissing with prejudice? Now, who is he asking? Is he asking his clerk? Is he asking somebody in, a servant of the court? Is he asking the prosecutor? No, not at all. He's asking David Hamblin's lawyer, how do I do this thing for you that you just asked me? So this guy, he's an alleged molester, bare minimum, but the other allegations are, of course, satanic ritual abuse. And the judge, instead of saying, okay, let's figure out, let's find out what are the reasons. Well, he says what the reasons are. Statute of limitations is already run out, and some new information that of course, nobody's aware of, supposedly cast doubt on the reliability of the alleged victim. And so the judge says, well, doesn't say, well, a lawyer for the alleged victim, do you have any opposition to this? Do you have anything? Do we have a hearing to be able to have the victim come in and establish their credibility? No, it's immediately, what are the rules? But I can just dismiss this, but what are the rules of doing it with prejudice so that this can never be brought up again? Asks David Hamblin's lawyer that question. And so they have some back and forth about that. And then the judge says, well, I'm going to dismiss it, but in a couple of days, I'm going to issue a public statement of whether it's with prejudice or not. That's essentially the end of the meeting. They also talked about, before all this, they did talk about the Manti meeting. And so I've heard different accounts from people that went to the meeting in Manti. So I can't say exactly what happened, but I'm reporting to you what was said in the American Fork meeting was that the judge in Manti told them that he will defer to the American Fork judge and just go along with whatever that judge said. And so that's what was said in the hearing in American Fork. I'm just going to look at the your chat here, see what's going on. Are Hamblin's daughters going to testify? Well, no, Craig, they're not going to testify in court because the charges were dismissed. There is going to be no trial. David Hamblin, my life might be at risk right now because I'm out here naming his name, putting his face on the thumbnail, and he's a free man. There are no charges pending against him. There's no trial coming up against him. He is a free man at this moment, as far as I can, as far as the information that I got from the hearing today. So no, Greg, they're not gonna testify. Nobody's gonna testify because it's all done. The case was dismissed, and we will find out in the next day or two if it was with prejudice. Comments, thoughts, Rod?
There's something in the scriptures. I think I sent you a quote earlier.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. From Helaman chapter 7, for those who are LDS, that's from the Book of Mormon, talking about the secret combinations that were around here in America 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, something like that. But the issue there was that you had, it's the same as now, right? You had judges and lawyers basically working in cahoots with each other to make sure that the wicked went free. And that's exactly what they mentioned. Helaman 7 verse 5, condemning the righteous because of their righteousness and letting the guilty and the wicked go unpunished because of their money. And that time it was because of money. In our day, I don't know that that's it necessarily. I think that you've got so many people that are involved in these kind of things. You've gone into greater detail at Tree of Liberty Society in the past about sheriffs and all these other people here in Utah that are all implicated in having been involved in satanic ritual abuse. So it only makes sense that they would actually be scratching each other's backs here, protecting one another, and trying to keep their buddies out of jail, right?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And along those lines, it was interesting. So afterwards, when I got booted off, right, the judge completely just tossed the First Amendment right out the door with his threat to throw me in jail, file criminal charges against me, issue or levy fines against me for daring to, follow the Constitution. I called up a lawyer that I've talked to before about things regarding liberty, and went through all the things that we're talking about now. And he was like, this is, he was as flabbergasted as I am about this. And so this is, to me, I think, with people that have been watching this, people that are just involved in law in general, this is just crazy. And so what's really interesting is, to me as well, is how this whole thing unfolded. We have somebody that is watching us because of what we've done in the past. They are watching what we're doing, and they're reporting to Hamblin's lawyers. They did not. David Hamblin's friends did not want this hearing televised. They did not want you to be able to see the judge say these things to David Hamblin's lawyer. They did not want you to see David Hamblin be able to get off scot-free, because, and I talked about this, just off camera with other people, about how it's one thing to read in the newspaper. Like if I'm, me even telling you about this, it's one thing. If you read an article about it, if you watch something on the news about it, that's one thing. But if you saw video and heard audio of these things happening for yourself, even though it's the same exact words, that video and that audio has just a much, much bigger impact. And so they are hoping that without you being able to see these things take place, that you'll just, it'll just go to the back of your mind and you'll forget about it. Oh, there goes more government corruption, as opposed to realizing, hey, it's looking like we've got every level of government involved in protecting satanic ritual abuse.
They're like cockroaches, where they just can't stand having the light shown on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, if you hear about it later, it's already done. What's done is done, right? And then you feel like there's nothing you can do about it. But when you're watching it happen at that moment, I think it has a greater impact on people. It affects them more strongly, more personally. But like you were saying, it just seems more like they want to do the what do you say, backroom deals or whatever. Do it in the dark, so that nobody actually knows what's going on. And if you hear about it later, you might just wonder if it's true. They can claim misinformation or something, right?
Exactly. So I don't know, is there anything in the chat, anybody watching the video right now have any comments or questions that they'd like us to address? Maybe Rod, you've got anything else that we should bring up before we kind of come it to a close? But that's really the gist of it. Is we have the friends of these alleged, satanic ritual abuse people, warning David Hamblin's lawyer, then David Hamblin's lawyer telling the court, the judge saying, you exercise the First Amendment, I'm hunting you down. He said, I will find you, he said. And I will put you in jail, I will fine you, and then there is possible criminal charges. That's what he said. And then the court goes on to say, okay, we're dismissing this case with all of these witnesses, possibly with prejudice. It's craziness.
Yeah, I think that for me, what's absurd as well is, for them to just come out and say, well, we now feel like there's some irregularities with the evidence. Should that not be investigated? Is that not what the court and all this stuff is?
Isn't that what a trial would be able to find, right?
Exactly, right. That's the whole thing. Like, there's supposed to be discovery, right? That is what discovery is about. You investigate these things and you talk about them and you weigh the merits, right?
Right.
Well, instead of just saying, well, we think it's unreliable, so we might as well just drop it. Again, when you look at those kind of clues, that's the kind of stuff those are the red flags you want to watch for, to see whether or not it's an actual justice that they're trying to serve, or whether or not it's a kangaroo court, right? Which in this case, in my opinion, that's what this was.
With the judge asking the defendant how to act, asking the defendant for instructions on what to do next. Mm-hmm. That's bizarre. I've been accused of crimes. I've been to people's courts. The judge, never asked the defendant what to do next. He always asks either the prosecutor or somebody else in the court.
That's almost like that video I've seen of Putin walking down the hall in the Capitol in Russia, and there's some other dude in front of him, and Putin gets out of his way. And it's one of those things where you watch it and you're like, yeah, who's in charge, right? Putin, if he was in charge, wouldn't get out of anybody's way. And I feel like it's that same kind of thing here too, where you're watching the interactions and they kind of tell you who's calling the shots. Right.
Or that other picture of one of the Rothschilds putting King Charles in the chest.
Yes, exactly that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. All right. I think we've really covered the basics of this. We will continue to follow up on this. And so make sure that you are liked, subscribed, share this video with others. check out the other videos in this playlist of satanic ritual abuse, and share that, because we're being shadow banned, and they are trying to stop us from getting this message out. And so we need you to kind of help us carry the weight by making sure that more people know about these things. Go over to treeoflibertysociety.com. Make sure that you are subscribed to our text or email alerts, and we will see you again tomorrow night. We're doing another live on Skull and Bones, because next Thursday we've got huge blow up here, right, Rod? On some new information on the Skull and Bones Society. So tomorrow night we're going to give you an intro, and then the following Thursday we're going to get you some brand new stuff on that. So we hope to see you again tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Mountain Time, and then next Thursday at the same time. Okay, good night, everybody. I'll see you soon.